Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. You know, I gotta tell you, there's nothing I love more than putting on fresh, warm underwear right out of the dryer. Plus, it's fun to look around the laundromat and try to guess who it belongs to. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're gonna go ahead and take a look at Vive L'Empereur. We'll get back to the review in just a moment. I want to take a minute to ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, books on history, military history. I even post some of my lectures for my classes on there. Please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. And now, back to the review. Vive l'Empereur is a solitaire war game from our friend Herman Luttman. It's all about that kooky Battle of Waterloo, in which you take on the role of Napoleon and the French as you try to crush the forces of Wellington and his Prussian allies. Now, the game board is a paper map that depicts the battlefield of Waterloo. You're going to have a number of counter tokens that are divided by corps. Essentially, you're going to have your corps, the Napoleonic corps in blue, the British in red, and of course the Prussians in kind of the black. And you're going to go ahead and note that the units you play, the French, they kind of have their titles at the top, your opponents kind of at the bottom. Now, the various counters have information, stats about them. The first red number is your strength number. How powerful is that unit? The larger units are divisions, but if they have an asterisk near that number, they're a smaller unit, usually brigade size. Your middle number is your artillery value for that unit, and the number on the bottom right in green is the unit's elan rating, the morale of that unit. Now, at the beginning of the game, you're going to take the various activation markers. These represent the various corps from the Allied or the French side, as well as perhaps detachments, smaller units, as well, and the Prussian units as well. You're going to put them all into a container. You're going to pull from them to activate the various corps. Now, every time you pull a French corps activation marker, you can activate every unit in that corps. Now, depending on several factors, they can move and act in different ways. For instance, infantry and artillery can move a total of 2 hexes, providing there's no kooky terrain. I think light cavalry can move 4 hexes, heavy cavalry can move 3 hexes. You can also do a forced march, moving your infantry 1 further hex, but then you have to do an elan test rating. More on that later. Now, generally speaking, as far as stacking goes, you can only have 1 unit in a hex at a time, unless one of the units is a small unit, then you can have 2 units in a hex at a time. Now, each unit, as I say, has an artillery rating. Essentially, that's the number of dice you can roll if you just want to do artillery bombardment. You can fire up to 4 hexes away, and depending on terrain and other factors, if you've got the high ground, you get various plus or minus modifiers during combat. You roll the die, and you're attempting to hit a unit-specific target number, their target value. If you can hit that, then you damage them 1 step. More on that later. Now, if you want to engage in close combat, you must have a unit already adjacent to an enemy unit. And before you can actually engage in the fighting, you have to roll make an elan test. Essentially, you look at the elan number and you want to roll either equal to or underneath the elan number. If you can do that, you can engage in combat as normally. If, however, you fail, you cannot engage in close combat operations, but you can still do a modified artillery bombardment. Now, during close combat, both the attacking and defending unit are going to roll a number of dice based on their combat, but there are also going to be some various plus and minus dice modifiers. For instance, defending units will get a +1 dice if they can have a neighboring, if there's a neighboring unit that is adjacent to them. But you're going to go ahead, you're going to roll all the dice you're entitled to, and for every hit you make that is at or above their elan rating, then you go ahead and inflict 1 step loss on that unit. Now, the first time you take a step loss, you put a shaken token underneath your unit. If you take 2, you would actually go to the flip side of the shaken, which is disorganized or disrupted. And then if you are hit again, you actually remove that token, but the basic counter then is flipped to its weakened side. It's got a line through the middle. Then, if it's hit again, you get a shaken underneath that. Then you would get a disrupted under that. And then if it is hit again, that unit is dead. It is removed from the game. During core activation, you can also choose to rally a unit, meaning if you have a unit with a shaken or a disrupted token underneath it, you can move that up a step. You can change a disrupted to a shaken. You can remove a shaken, but you cannot flip a broken unit back to its unbroken side. Now, there's also special rules for close combat with cavalry. For instance, if infantry attacks cavalry, cavalry can just has the opportunity to flee. And there's some other things that go into cavalry operations here. Now, if ever you draw an activation token for a British corps, essentially what you're going to do is consult a chart and usually roll a die. If you roll a die, it will tell you what exactly the enemy is going to do. The British unit may engage in artillery bombardment of the French. It may advance toward the highest strength French unit near them. There's different things that the AI will tell you to do with all of the units in that corps, usually involving some kind of aggressive action toward the French. Now, at the beginning of the game, you're going to place 3 core unit markers on the time track. Now, again, the Battle of Waterloo took place over the course of several hours. You're starting at the beginning. You may actually start later, depending on certain factors, but you're going to start, of course, early on the track. The 3 Prussian units, they're actually going to start at the bottom of the track, and when you draw the Blucher activation chit, you may go ahead and you may roll the die. Now, if you roll, I think, higher than a 2 on any of them, they advance an hour, meaning they'll arrive an hour earlier to the battlefield. Once the Prussians arrive, they're going to have objectives on the board. They're going to, of course, come in on the right side of the board, hitting Napoleon's flank near Plancenoit. They're going to be moving in that direction, and Napoleon is going to have to counter them, even as he continues the advance against the British. Now, if you select the Napoleon marker, you can go ahead, you can hold on to the Napoleon marker or play it at any time. And you have 2 of them in the activation cup. So twice you're going to be able to activate some very special abilities that Napoleon can use to help him in the battle. If you draw the Wellington command activation marker, then you are going to go ahead and consult Wellington's very special actions, roll a die, and they will direct you to do, as I say, some very scary things for the French. Now, the game board has various victory point hexes scattered around it. Now, after the 12th game turn, Napoleon is going to go ahead and add up all of the victory point hexes he has conquered during the game and defended, most notably from the Prussians. But he's going to add those together and assess just how close to victory or defeat he came in Vive L'Empereur. So first of all, this is a Herman Luttman design. Herman Luttman is a great designer. I've enjoyed a lot of his games. Most recently, the Plum Island Horror, which was just an outstanding game. In fact, I recently did my top 30 games of 2023. Plum Island Horror came in 11, and Vive L'Empereur came in 10. So that already kind of tells you what I think about this game. I actually had seen, I think it was the Player's Aid had mentioned this, and so I was very curious about it, and it looked just outstanding. So I contacted Blue Jaguar, whom I was not familiar with before this, and I asked them if they had a review copy. They sent me one out. And the first thing that impressed me as I was unboxing this is the counters themselves are very thick, very durable. I really liked the counters here. I think they're just good, strong, thick counters that I really, really liked. So I set up the game, and I'm playing through it, and it's a very smooth system. It's a very easy to get into system. If you're familiar at all with hex and counter war games, you'll be able to jump right into this. I don't think there's anything here that's radically different or insane. The rule book is pretty straightforward. It's pretty clear, and it kind of does a good job of illustrating the basics of the game and then also some of the few special circumstances that pop up. The AI here for the British activation is actually very good. You roll the die, you determine what they do. Once in a while, you might come up with some little buggy thing occasionally, but generally it all works really well. I like that. And then I like too when you draw the Wellington command marker and you get those kind of special actions that he can take. I thought that went went. It was really fun too. I mean, I love the discovery of the die roll on an event table. I always loved that, and I love that here with this game. I think that's just super fun, both with Wellington, but with also with just the regular British Corps when you roll the die to see, okay, they're gonna do this. I really like that. And I freaking love, I love Waterloo games. I love playing games about Battle of Waterloo. It's a fascinating battle, and it's a fun battle to game out. And one of the things I always love about this battle is this notion that Napoleon has got some big guns. And on paper, it looks like he can take out the British with a little bit of effort. He'll probably do it, except those darn Prussians are coming. And I love to see how games like this model the arrival of the Prussians, because that was such a absolutely essential and important part of the battle here. And this game does it so well. I love this system where you draw the Blucher counter and you have to roll to see if the Prussians, you roll for each one of the corps to see if they're going to arrive sooner rather than later. And it's very tense, and it's a nail biter every time you pull that Blucher command marker. You don't know, what are the Prussians going to do? What are the Prussians going to do? It's scary, and it is fun. I really, really, really like that aspect of the game. It's a little long. Now, some games, when I say they're long, I mean that in a pejorative sense, in that it's longer. I hate games that are longer than the fun they produce. Like, you get to a point in the game when you feel like it becomes a chore. Okay, let's wrap it up. Let's see what happens. And that happens. Sometimes that happens in games. Games outlast the fun they generate. This is a long game, 3 hours or so. It can be. But I never lose interest. I mean, right up into the end, it's if you get to that point where maybe you're not going to win, well, how much of a victory can I get? What can I hold, right? What can I keep from those pesky Prussians that are coming at me? It's very fun, and I love hex and counter war games when you see the story of the battle, and it sounds so stupid, I know, but you have those moments when you're engaging in a battle and you're rolling the die, but in your head you can see the farmhouse at Hougoumont. You can see them trying to take that. You can see Blucher arriving and the French disposition, because even though you want to throw everything you can at the British, you got to hold something back in reserve to meet those Prussians. And you can see these things in your head, and you in that very, very teeny, 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 tiny way, you understand some of the choices that had to be made at that battlefield. And I don't say that lightly. I certainly am aware of the men who died and suffered on that battlefield, and I do not mean to make light of that at all. But you do get on that very, very small level the strategic dilemma that the leaders in that battle encountered. And you can see it play out in your head, and it's fun. It is fun, and it is engaging. Now, I said this when I did my top 10 games of 2023. Vive L'Empereur is quickly becoming one of my favorite solitaire war games. And I'll tell you this right now, it's quickly becoming one of my favorite hex and counter war games. It's just that good. I really, really enjoy this game. It's tough. It's challenging. You've got tough decisions. Do I attack? Do I try to outflank? Do I just artillery bombard? But that's going to waste time. What do I do? And it's oh man, it's a fun game. It's real. Anyway, I'm babbling. I love this game. I cannot speak its praises high enough. If you're a war gamer, and even if you're somebody looking to get into hex and counter wargaming, I think it's particularly solitaire hex and counter wargaming. This might be a good entry point for you. It's not too difficult. Okay, love the game. Recommendation for the discriminating gamer: 100%. Buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, I ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. I'd ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. And I'd ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to please check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history, books on history. I even post some of my lectures from my classes there on that channel. Please check that out, and please subscribe to that channel. It would mean a lot to me. I'd also ask you to please click on the thumb button here on Board Game Geek for this video. And if you are a fan of the channel and you really enjoy the content we bring here, I'd humbly ask you to click on the Super Thanks button and leave a tip. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying I'm old, but I went to an antiques auction the other day, and they bid on me.
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
Bonjour et bienvenue à La Discriminate and Gamer. Quand j'étais petit, quand j'avais 12 ou 13 ans, j'ai voulu être un maron ou un avocat ou acteur. Mais aujourd'hui, prof de l'histoire.